Hi everybody, welcome to Christian Homestead. My name is Jared. If you haven't already, please make sure to subscribe. So I want to get you up to speed with my spreadsheet that has been around for a long time, but I haven't done anything with it until now, called Quotes, Prophecy, Modern Day. So just to clarify, I basically have 3 spreadsheets where I try and keep track of prophecy. I have this one for modern day prophecies, meaning prophecies after the scriptures. They could be by Joseph Smith, but not in Doctrine and Covenants, and then afterwards. But I also have this one called Quotes Prophecy Fulfillment Tracker, where these are prophecies from the scriptures. And then I have quotes and also some speculations about how these prophecies have been fulfilled or may be in the process of being fulfilled. And then I have this spreadsheet called Quotes Prophecy Fulfilled / Not Fulfilled, where in general, I'm looking for any time that somebody has said in General Conference that we're still waiting for this to be fulfilled before the second coming. The second coming can't happen now because X has not been fulfilled. And this is all color-coded. You can read this if you want. You can also access my spreadsheets anytime. The link is in the description box of each video. I'm not going to go over this right now. But these are my 3 spreadsheets. And I want to do a lot more work on this one for modern prophecies. And I also want to get this all standardized and add on to this one for prophecies from the scriptures. It's just going to take time. So let me show you what I have on here so far. There's 4 of these I'm going to go over, and then 2 I'm just going to make mention of. So we're going to go over the Olympics prophecy, which seems like it's going to have a double fulfillment. So we'll get into that. It's a prophecy of Brigham Young. And then I have 2 prophecies about hundreds of temples that will be built in this land, meaning I think maybe both North and South America. That part's a little bit murky, but I think it's Joseph Smith's one definition of Zion being all of North and South America. And then we have this World War I prophecy of President Wilford Woodruff. And then after that, we have this one from President Spencer W. Kimball, how he prophesied that the women of the church of today, and President Nelson has said it's the women of the church of right now today, are going to be the ones that really drive major growth in the church. They're going to draw in the good women of the world along with their families into the church. And there's going to be this acceleration. So I've already gone over that one enough times, so I'm not going to go over it in this video. And then in my most recent video, we went over this recent prophecy of President Nelson about the BYU School of Medicine. And he said that it's going to do big things, bigger than what we can see right now, far beyond anything we can see right now. Okay, so let's go down to the Olympics prophecy of Brigham Young. And here it is right here, but I'm going to read it from President Hinckley's talk delivered in the April 2002 General Conference. The name of the talk is The Church Goes Forward. He includes the prophecy in his talk. Okay, when our people first arrived in this valley 155 years ago, they saw with prophetic vision a great future. But I sometimes wonder if they really sensed the magnitude of that dream as it would unfold. The headquarters of the church are here in this city, which recently hosted the 19th Winter Olympics. We made a deliberate decision that we would not use this as a time or place to proselytize, but we were confident that out of this significant event would come a wonderful thing for the church. The great buildings which we have here, the temple, the tabernacle, this magnificent conference center, the Joseph Smith Memorial Building, family history facilities, the church administration building, the church office building, our welfare facilities, together with scores of chapels in this valley, could not be overlooked by those who walk the streets of this and neighboring cities. As Mike Wallace once remarked to me, quote, "These structures all denote something solid," end quote. Okay, later in the talk, he says, "We had private interviews with presidents of nations, with ambassadors, with leaders in business and other fields. In 1849, 2 years after our people first arrived here and following the discovery of gold in California, many were discouraged. They had struggled to wrest a living from the arid soil. Crickets had devoured their crops. The winters were cold. Many thought they would go to California and get rich. President Young stood before them and encouraged them to remain, promising that, quote, and here's the prophecy, God will temper the climate, and we shall build a city and a temple to the Most High God in this place. We will extend our settlements to the east and west, to the north and to the south, and we will build towns and cities by the hundreds, and thousands of the saints will gather in from the nations of the earth. This will become the great highway of the nations. Kings and emperors and the noble and wise of the earth will visit us here. And then President Hinckley says, we have witnessed the fulfillment of that prophecy in these recent days. Now, as it turns out, as of last year, on Pioneer Day, of all days, it was announced that the Winter Olympics were coming back to Salt Lake City. And so we may have a double fulfillment of this prophecy, according to President Hinckley and how he said that this is how the prophecy has been fulfilled. So in the October 2024 General Conference, Elder Stevenson gave a talk called Days Never to be Forgotten. And he said, in 2034, thousands of dignitaries, visitors, and athletes from around the world will flood the streets of Salt Lake City, the stage for the Winter Olympic Games. There is perhaps no greater demonstration of worldwide unity than that embodied in the Olympic Games. The eyes of the world will be upon the church and its members, affording a multitude of opportunities to volunteer, serve, and share glad tidings through kind deeds, an event never to be forgotten. These upcoming moments will provide members of the church everywhere with increased opportunities to share the glad tidings of the gospel of Jesus Christ through word and deed, a decade never to be forgotten. So that's pretty exciting. It was already fulfilled once with the 2002 oh my gosh, I'm so used to saying General Conference, the 2002 Winter Olympics, and now perhaps a second and maybe even greater fulfillment of this prophecy in 2034. Okay, so this is the first one that I have on the spreadsheet for right now, but I'm sure that there's more that are soon to come. And then we have these two prophecies about hundreds of temples in this land. Now, really quick, let's take a look at this temple map on Wikipedia. And you can see we have temples all over the world, especially in North and South America. Now, I'm not going to count all of these up, so I just did a Google search, and we're going to look at the Google AI answer for that. And according to Google AI, it says North America has 204 temples, and then South America, 61. So I guess it's yet to be seen if this is fulfilled as of right now, because between both North and South America, we do have hundreds. As soon as you get into the 200s, you now have hundreds, plural, not just 100. But maybe we're not quite there yet. I don't know. But let's go ahead and let's read these two quotes. The first one is from Elder Erastus Snow of the Quorum of the 12 Apostles. You can find this in Journal of Discourses, volume 25, pages 30 to 31. The time was in the infancy of this church when our minds were so narrowed compared to what they are now, that we looked for the speedy coming of our Lord and the accomplishment of this great work before this time. But as our minds grew and our ideas enlarged, we began to perceive that we were only children in our views and feelings, our ideas and expectations. We had the views, ideas, and expectations of children. And we see how the Lord has enlarged Israel and expanded his work. And now we behold so much more to be accomplished than what has been accomplished, that we are apt in our minds to put off the day of the Lord a great way. The time was that we looked for one temple. And then he goes on to talk about the temple in Jackson County. And then later on, he says, when we located in the mountains, and laid the foundation of a temple in Salt Lake City, who of us had an idea that before it should be completed, we would be administering in a temple in St. George, and another in Logan, and another in Manti? And who conceives the idea today that by the time these are completed and the saints have officiated in them, we will be scattered over the American continent, building temples in 100 other places? All this comes within the range of possibility, nay, probability, almost amounting to certainty. One of my brethren behind me here, who understands these things and who can speak knowingly in regard to them, says that we may put it down as a certainty that by and by there will be hundreds of these temples throughout the land. Again, I don't know if he's referring just to North America or also South America, or if he's talking about the entire world. I don't know. But we'll go ahead and let's move on from this. We have this quote from Abraham O. Smoot. You can find this in Millennial Star, June 25th, 1888. The name of the article is The Dedication of the Manti Temple. President A.O. Smoot said he could declare of a truth that the Lord had accepted of the Manti Temple, and that many thousands would be caused to rejoice over their deliverance through the work therein performed. Knew the church when it included but one small stake. Had a testimony that the Lord was with Zion and that it would not be removed out of its place. That's referring to Jackson County. Some people think that the plan has changed. It hasn't changed. And I have plenty of references for that, including very recent ones. Had never entertained a doubt or a fear for 53 years as to the triumph of the work in which he was engaged. The Lord would not forsake Zion, was assured that the time was near at hand when the promises made concerning the redemption of Zion would be fulfilled. This was a blessed land, and God would protect his people therein, inasmuch as they would be faithful. Now here's the prophecy. Had heard the prophets Joseph and Brigham say there would be hundreds of temples built in this land. Now, I need to see if I can go through and find these quotes, if they're written down somewhere. I don't know if they were written down. If you have them, please send them my way. I'll put them on this spreadsheet. I'll give you credit. But yeah, Joseph Smith and Brigham Young prophesying that there would be hundreds of temples in this land. All right, so in any case, I feel like we're probably well on our way, if it hasn't been fulfilled as of right now. Okay, let's move on to the next one. I think this is the last one. Yeah, it's the last one I want to share in this video. Okay, so this is President Wilford Woodruff, but we're reading from a General Conference talk from the October 1951 General Conference. You can find it in Conference Report, pages 25 to 31. All right. Elder Harold B. Lee of the Quorum of the 12 Apostles. The responsibilities of the prophets in every dispensation have been to sound a warning for the nations to repent and to come unto the Lord and avoid the judgments that otherwise will be sent upon mankind. President Wilford Woodruff, in a sermon delivered to temple workers in Brigham City in June 1894, had a remarkable prediction and a statement with regard to these matters. A part of his sermon is as follows. Now, before I read this, keep in mind that this was a year after the Salt Lake Temple was dedicated. And we have several quotes from President Joseph Fielding Smith that say that Wilford Woodruff, at the dedication of the temple, declared that the angels mentioned in the book of Revelation that were waiting to bring judgment to the earth were held back until the dedication of the Salt Lake Temple. And we have this quote right here that alludes to that. He doesn't explicitly say the angels of the book of Revelation, but when you look in the church manuals, it confirms that that is what he's talking about. But let me go ahead and read this, because he doesn't just talk about those angels. He gives a prophecy of what turns out to be World War I. Okay, President Woodruff says, "We cannot draw a veil over the events that await this generation. No man that is inspired by the Spirit and power of God can lose or can close his ears and his eyes or his lips to these things. When I have the vision of night open continually before my eyes and can see the mighty judgments that are about to be poured out upon this world, when I know these things are true and are at the door of the Jew and the Gentile, while I know they are true, while I'm holding this position before God in this world, can I withhold my voice from lifting up a warning to this people and to the nations of the earth? And from this very day they shall be poured out. Calamities and troubles are increasing in the earth, and there is a meaning to these things. Read the scriptures and the revelations. They will tell you about these things. Great changes are at our doors. Now here's the prophecy right here that we're talking about in this video. The next 20 years will see mighty changes among the nations of the earth. You will live to see these things whether I do or not. I have felt oppressed with the weight of these matters, and I have felt that I must speak of them here. It is by the power of the gospel we shall escape. And that's the end of the quote. And then back to Elder Harold B. Lee. He had enumerated a number of the calamities which he had foreseen, and then stated, "They are at our very doors, and not even this people will escape them entirely." 20 years later, as he had predicted, lacking 1 month, the Great World War of July 1914 broke in all its fury. Many of you here have been witnesses of the fulfillment of what President Woodruff said, and from that time to the present time, there has been an increasing intensity of the troubles and difficulties upon the earth. He sounded a note of comfort and blessing, however, in his closing statement. "Remember this and reflect upon these matters," he said. "If you do your duty and I do mine, we shall have protection and shall pass through the afflictions in peace and safety." All right, so we have gone over the Olympics prophecy, is what I'm calling it. And maybe there's other ways that this has been fulfilled. We know that President Nelson has met with all sorts of world leaders. He met with President Trump. This was before he became president of the church, when he was president of the Quorum of the 12 Apostles. Trump came, he visited Welfare Square. But we've had ambassadors, we've had religious leaders come and visit with the first presidency. And then we covered these two prophecies about having hundreds of temples in this land. And then the World War I prophecy. And then as a reminder, the other two that I have so far is President Kimball's prophecy about the women of today, bringing major growth to the church. And then the most recent one, President Nelson's BYU School of Medicine prophecy. Again, if you missed that, just watch my last video. It was pretty good. That video made me really happy. Okay, that's going to be it for this one. So if you haven't already, please make sure to subscribe. Like this video if you liked it. Leave your thoughts and opinions down in the comments below. Also make sure to share it, and I'll talk to you guys later.